Alright, much Abrew about nothing. Playing some Manaless Dredge in Modern, or Legacy. And this hand is okay-ish. Well, you can't mulligan. We got a Dredger. We got multiple Dredgers. So, discard the hand size, turn 1, Stinkweed Imp. Don't have any card draw to get an extra Dredge trigger, but... Oh, Miracles? Alright, this should hopefully be a good Game 1 match. Basically, that's the big appeal to this deck, is we should have a great record in Game 1s. We've lost a Game 1 so far, but the whole reason to play this deck is we should just dominate Game 1s, and then hope to dodge the hate on Games 2 and 3. I mean, you never know. The hate is unbeatable. We literally cannot beat it, but Cabal Therapy is not bad, if we get to that point. We need a Phantasmagorian to start discarding some stuff. Scalding Tarn for our opponent. And passes. Let's open our graveyard here. So Dredge, Stinkweed, we get... Ooh, there's Phantasmagorians. I don't think it really matters what order we put these. There's a Dread Return, but we don't have... Alright, I don't think there's any reason to do things yet. But this is setting up pretty well. We're going to be able to discard almost our entire hand on our opponent's end step. We can discard 6 with these Phantasmagorians. We'll discard our Stinkweed here. And then we just need to hit things that allow us to, like, flashback our Dread Return, hit some creatures that come back from the graveyard. Opponent cracks their Scalding Tarn, gets a Tundra, and there's Counterbalance. Not too good because we're not really casting spells. So on our opponent's end step, let's Phantasmagorian, discard Thug, Thug, and Thug. And then we'll leave the other one in there. Let's Dredge Stinkweed, since it's the most Dredge. Alright, there we go. Order doesn't really matter. And now we'll just pass the turn. We can use Phantasmagorian again to do some more discarding. With 2 Phantasmagorians, we can just keep discarding 1 along with other cards. And now we're to the point where we have an Icarid, and we have a Bridge from Below. So we're getting close to where we want to be. Opponent passes, so let's Phantasmagorian, discard Phantasmagorian, Stinkweed Imp, and Filleer of the Hatebound. And then I guess we might as well do this again. Phantasmagorian, Cabal Therapy, and Spy. Now we can we get back our Icarid, exiling a Street Wraith. Then we dredge our Grave Troll. There's an Archamoeba and a Prized Amalgam, and the order still doesn't really matter. So we get back a Narcomoeba for free, which is going to trigger our Prized Amalgam. Do we have just one bridge? One bridge from below at the moment. So I don't think we can win right here. We could Cabal Therapy. I guess we might as well try to Cabal Therapy. Flashback Cabal Therapy, sacking Icarid. Well, alright. So we go to combat, get in with Icarid, and then we Cabal Therapy, targeting our opponent, sacking Icarid. Opponent can probably counter it with Counterbalance. Opponent has Vendilion Click. Alright. Are they targeting us? They're going to target themselves, I believe. Yep, targets themselves with Click. Puts a Terminus on the bottom. Cracks Scalding Tarn. Flips, activates top. So we're pretty close to just winning next turn. Opponent reveals another top on top. So we get back our Prized Amalgam. Pass the turn. So next turn, what we're trying to set up is Dread Return on our Balustrade Spy, which will put our entire library in our graveyard. And then we should be able to win from there. Opponent passes, so let's Phantasmagorian, discard the rest of our stuff, get back a Phantasmagorian. So Icarid, we get to exile a Street Wraith, and then dredge our Golgari Grave Troll. Did not get a second bridge, so Nether Shadow on the bottom, rest of the stuff on top. Get back a Narcomoeba. Then I think we Cabal Therapy, sacking a Narcomoeba. Opponent activates top. We get a zombie from Bridge from Below. And then we will Dread Return, targeting our Spy. See if this gets countered. Activates top. So they need like a Jace floating to be able to counter it with counterbalance. Force of Will on top. They might have to flip top and force. If they let this go, I think they just lose. Alright, we get the Spy. So we get to mill our entire deck. So entire deck is in the graveyard. Order doesn't really matter. We get back a Narcomoeba. Triggers Prized Amalgams, but they don't come back till our end of turn. Should probably just auto-yield. So we should be able to get the win from here. So then we Dread Return, targeting our Flayer. Well, let's Cabal Therapy again. Cabal Therapy our opponent, sack Narcomoeba. We get a ton of zombies. Opponent only has 1 mana left, so if they want to keep rearranging with top or flipping their top, we're going to get the top plan offline. Alright, they draw the force, put the top on top. Well, this is fine. We win through force. We just don't win through... We don't necessarily win through a Jace with counterbalance, but now we know that plan's off the table. Unless our opponent has a Brainstorm with their last mana. So now let's Dread Return to get back our Flayer of the... yeah, let's go for Flayer of the Hatebound. And our opponent scoops it up! Whoo! Alright, so that's what the deck is trying to do. That's the plan right there. So, what was that? Turn 5, so not a super fast kill, but our opponent just didn't have a way to interact with what we were doing. So now the question is, I mean, we don't really have anything for this matchup, I don't believe. Chancellor doesn't seem that great. Killing creatures doesn't seem great. Mindbreak Trap is more for unfair decks. Our opponent's probably not going to be casting 3 or more spells in a turn. So I think we just got to run it back. And now it's about, for one of these next 2 games, dodging the sideboard hate. That is the name of the game with Dredge. Alright, game 2, Manaless Dredge against Miracles. Our opponent is mulliganing for the sideboard hate. Do they find it? Our opponent chose to play first. One thing you can do against the deck is make us go last, because then we have to skip our turn, or make us go first, because then we have to skip our turn anyway. There's a top for our opponent. Well, we pass the turn, discard Phantasmagorian. The only good news here is we actually get a free Dredge, which might help a little, thanks to our Street Wraith. If our opponent just goes land, rest in peace, though. Ponder. Alright. Well, we just got to be fast and beat our opponent drawing a rest in peace. Plains. And passes? Ooh, alright. So, Phantasmagorian. Discard Grave Troll. Discard Golgari Thug. And discard Dread Return? Or Icarid. Let's go with Icarid. And then we get to cycle Street Wraith. To dredge our Grave Troll. Put everything in our graveyard. Untap, we get back a bunch of stuff. Nether Shadow comes back. Prized Amalgam triggers. Nether Shadow comes back. Prized Amalgam triggers. Icarid, can we get back Icarid? Yeah, I guess we get rid of Street Wraith. Triggers Prized Amalgam. Then dredge Grave Troll. Ooh, and we got the bridge. Alright, dump everything in our graveyard. Then we get to attack with everything. So I think that maybe it would have been correct to just discard the Dread Return. That's what I'm thinking now. If we had discarded the Dread Return, then we would have been able to try to Dread Return a Spy there, and that might have just been the right thing to do. Opponent activates top. So at least we have a board, though. So even if our opponent drops a rest in peace here, they still have to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 power on board. So pretty close to a 2-turn clock. If they crack a fetch land, it is a 2-turn clock. Alright, so we have a 2-turn clock on the battlefield. Opponent just passes? Alright. Well, let's Icarid, exiling a Street Wraith. Then we will Dredge Stinkweed. Order doesn't really matter with these ones. Do we just go to combat? They could have Terminus here. But if we try to Cabal Therapy, they'll just Terminus in response. Yeah, let's go to combat. Swing with everything. They could also have like Vendilion Click or Snapcaster to block and get rid of our bridge from below, but that's not even that scary at the moment. Looks like they do have the Terminus. Alright, well that slows us down. All of our stuff goes to the bottom. Can't really do anything about it, but it's not Graveyard Hate, so it's not the end of the world. So everything goes to the bottom. We still have Dredgers, so that's fine. Opponent brainstorms. We are in a position now where if they find a Rest in Peace, we're pretty done for. Literally done for. Barring Rest in Peace, though, or something similar. Top. Alright, not Rest in Peace. Cracks Delta. Looks like they are just searching for a Rest in Peace. Top again. Did they find it? Opponent, looks like they're passing. Alright, that's fine. So, Icarid, exiling what? I guess another Street Wraith. And then we dredge a Stinkweed Imp. Ooh, that was actually pretty good. Order doesn't really matter. Narcomoeba comes back, which gets us back our prized Amalgam at the end of turn. So now we get to attack with our Icarid. And then Cabal Therapy our opponent, sacking Icarid. Get a couple of zombies with bridge from below. See if our opponent has any responses. Well, let's go Force of Will. Force of Will and Brainstorm. So Force of Will down. And then I think we just pass. Prized Amalgam comes back. Opponent brainstorms. Well, this is our opponent's turn. Next turn we should have the kill with Cabal Therapy to double check for more Force of Wills or something. And we get to discard a Phantasmagorian, which is awesome. Opponent activates top after the brainstorm. Discarding Phantasmagorian means that we get to discard Dread from Return, Grave Troll, and Nether Shadow, most likely. And Dread Return is the card we were sort of missing to actually just close out the game. Assuming our opponent doesn't have anything too awesome that they find off of these ponders and cantrips. Theoretically, it wins us the game. Opponent puts everything back on top. Island, counterbalance, okay. Well, let's Phantasmagorian, discard Grave Troll, Dread Return, and another Shadow doesn't even matter, does it? Let's just discard a second Grave Troll. Get back our Phantasmagorian. Upkeep Icarid. We will get rid of a Spy. Then we dredge our Grave Troll. Get nothing too exciting. So let's go to combat, see what happens. I mean, we have lethal right here if our opponent doesn't have something. And if they do play something, oh, wow, was that just a blind flip? Whoo, alright, we dodged the Graveyard Hate, and that's what Manaless Dredge can do when we dodge the Graveyard Hate. So, taking out Miracles. Sweet.